All right. Yeah. This one takes a minute. So slow down with me. Because when a system starts failing, it never fails in just one place. It fails everywhere at once. And what you're watching with Donald Trump right now isn't a bad news cycle. It's a cascading breakdown. Political, economic, legal, moral, all syncing up in real time. But let's start with the core idea most people miss. Power doesn't collapse because of one scandal. It collapses when the lies required to sustain it become too expensive to maintain, too many moving parts, too many contradictions, too many people who have to pretend they don't see what's right in front of them. That's what Thursday morning looked like for Trump. Because the first crack didn't come from Democrats. It didn't come from the media. It came from his own base, MAGA Republicans, people who built their careers on loyalty to him, publicly furious, publicly rebelling, not whispering, not leaking anonymously, on camera, on record. Why? Because Trump and MAGA Mike Johnson refused to allow even a vote on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies, not blocking it through debate, not losing a vote, just refusing to let democracy happen. That's a big deal. When your own people are screaming that leadership won't even allow a vote, that's not ideology. That's panic management. And the numbers matter here. We're talking about healthcare for roughly 22 to 24 million Americans. People who literally cannot afford insurance without those subsidies. This isn't abstract policy. This is rent versus insulin. This is parents deciding whether to take a kid to the doctor. This is real. Republicans like Mike Lawler know exactly what happens if those people lose coverage.
So where does that leave you?
You sound
I
pissed
am
off.
pissed for the American people. This is absolute bullshit. And it's absurd that we are in a body with 435 members. Everybody has a responsibility to serve their district, to serve their constituents.
What do you say, though, to the speaker who's not going to give you a vote on this ACA extension?
That's a failure of leadership. I mean, we have members on both sides who believe this is an urgent issue, and it is for all of our members in terms of what their constituents are going to have to deal with in the start of the new year. So what's wrong with having?
And instead of dealing with it, MAGA Mike shuts down the House, sends everyone home. No vote, no accountability. And the timing, right as the Epstein files are scheduled to be released. That's not subtle. That's a reflex. Now layer in the economic manipulation. This part is technical, but it's crucial. Because numbers are how modern power hides. Trump gets exposed manipulating inflation data. Suddenly, housing inflation is reported as basically zero. Anyone who has paid rent knows that's absurd. But the trick is bureaucratic. During the government shutdown, the Bureau of Labor Statistics assumed rent and owner's equivalent rent were zero for October. Zero. Not down. Not flat. Zero. So inflation drops. Then they leaned heavily on Black Friday sales. Temporary discounts. One weekend. Used as a primary metric for price declines across goods, clothing, products. That's like measuring the climate based on one cool afternoon. It's nonsense. But it creates a headline, and headlines are the currency. This isn't accidental. It's pattern behavior. Trump doesn't just lie. He engineers environments where lies become easier to pass through without resistance. Data gaps, shutdowns, cherry-picked metrics, always just enough plausibility to confuse people who aren't looking closely. Now let's talk about the New York Times expose, because this is where the moral rot becomes impossible to ignore. The article doesn't speculate. It documents interviews, records, witnesses. It describes Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as intense and deeply intertwined in the 1,990 seconds and early 2000s. Trump tried to minimize it, but the evidence says otherwise. They bonded over women, not relationships, not romance, power, ego, dominance, female bodies as currency. That's the phrase that sticks, because it explains everything. When people treat other humans as tokens, as status objects, as entertainment, it reveals how they see the world. And the details are sickening. An assistant working late for Epstein recalled moments when Epstein would deliberately keep her at her desk, then put Trump on speakerphone. Trump would brag about sexual exploits. Epstein would enjoy how uncomfortable it made her. One call involved mocking a woman's pubic hair, joking about whether there was enough to floss with. That's not locker room talk. That's pathology. Epstein also told accusers he had a bedroom reserved for him at Mar-a-Lago. Again, not rumor, testimony. And remember, Epstein was convicted of child sex trafficking. This is an ancient history. This isn't irrelevant. This is context. And here's the timing again. The Epstein files are about to be released. Trump knows what's in them, and you can see the system preparing to deflect, flood the zone, create chaos, shut down Congress, start culture wars, anything to pull attention away. Which brings us to Ghislaine Maxwell. She's now representing herself, filing a habeas corpus petition, claiming new evidence about FBI conduct. But the real strategy is rhetorical. Trump has publicly called her prosecution a hoax, called the Epstein files a hoax, fired the lead prosecutor, attacked her family. So Maxwell's argument is simple. If the president says it's fake, why am I in prison? This is how corrosive lies work. They don't just distort reality. They create legal leverage for criminals. They poison the system downstream. At the same time, House Oversight Democrats release additional photos from Epstein's estate, conversations about girls' ages, their weight, dehumanization captured in artifacts. This stuff exists whether people want to look at it or not. Now, zoom back to healthcare. While millions are about to lose coverage, what does the administration push? Dr. Oz, now elevated within the health department, talking about gender-affirming surgeries.
Vaginoplasty, a procedure a child does not need, costs $60,000. Shockingly, a phalloplasty, the creation of a penis, costs on average in America, according to this data, high quality, $150,000 per child. I do believe, with doing some work, that these prices have continued to increase with increasing manufacturer demand. And I must point out that the creation of a vagina, in that case of a phalloplasty, or a scrotoplasty where you add testicles, that's extra.
This is classic distraction politics. When you can't defend your material outcomes, you manufacture moral panic. You redirect anger away from systems and toward vulnerable groups. It's efficient. It's cynical. And it works on people who are already stressed. Then there's the military pay shell game. Trump claims he's giving troops a $1,776 warrior dividend. Sounds patriotic. Revolutionary War symbolism. But Defense One confirms the funds come from congressionally allocated housing allowances. Money meant to subsidize housing for service members. Trump takes it out of one pocket, hands it back with a bow, and takes personal credit. That's not generosity. That's rebranding existing funds. And it matters because housing allowances are a big deal. Military families rely on them. Congress allocates them for a reason. When you mess with that, you're not helping troops. You're destabilizing them. Notice the pattern. Housing data manipulated. Housing allowances repurposed. Housing crisis ignored. Everything funnels toward optics. And then we get to Trump Media, Truth Social's parent company, financially bleeding, losing tens of millions per quarter, stock collapsing, investors burned. Suddenly, a $6 billion merger with a fusion energy company. Fusion, a technology with no commercial plants currently producing electricity. Potential? Sure. Reality? Not yet. CNBC points out it's speculative, dependent on Department of Energy approvals and grants. And the stock jumps 33%. Ask yourself why. Not emotionally. Mechanically, Trump controls access. Trump influences regulatory environments. Trump Media merges with a company that needs government approval. That's not innovation. That's leverage. That's monetizing power. First Amendment opinion here. But it looks like enrichment through influence. And people see it. That's why trust erodes. Finally, Kevin Hassett goes on MSNBC, asked a simple question. Why does Trump exaggerate numbers? Gas prices, inflation. Why not just tell people the truth? And
Struck, we talked earlier in the show. Steve Ratner was here, helped us with a fact check. You know, the president does have some good news to talk about the economy, gas prices, for instance. But why the need to constantly sort of exaggerate? Gas prices are $3, they're not $2.50. You know, the idea of suggesting that I think a lot of the impact of inflation. Yes, some progress made, but not as much as he says. Why not just present American people and say, hey, look, these are the facts. I can understand how you feel. Why the need to exaggerate?
You know, I'd have to go back and look at the specific language, but and I hate coming back with questions for you guys, but the president, in order to make sure that everybody understood the facts and the facts were documented, spent a lot of time with our team, preparing slides that showed the data for what he was talking about in the speech. And in some networks, while he was speaking, they showed the slides, and in some networks they didn't. And I just thought that was kind of unusual. I was expecting, when I was flipping around, to just see the slides everywhere. Gosh, we spent so much more time on them. But I think that the president had documentation for the facts that he was saying. They were in the slides. And so if there's a specific number you'd like to talk about, maybe he misspoke or something, I'm happy to talk about it. But I wonder.
And here's the thing most people underestimate. Once trust breaks, it doesn't come back through louder speeches or better slides. It comes back through accountability, through reality, through consequences. That's why this day feels different. Not louder, heavier, because people aren't just angry. They're done pretending not to see. So, yeah, watch closely. These moments define trajectories. If you care about understanding how power actually fails, not the memes, not the noise, but the mechanics underneath, stay engaged. Share this. And double check you're subscribed, because sunlight still works.